Okay, we are live, so I'm going to press
And I was going to record.
just 1 second. There you go. So you can record.
I am looking for the record and I don't see
Well,
it.
I got a button
Do you
asking
see,
if it was okay, but I don't see the recording button.
do you see the three dots and where it says more?
I I do. Let me see if that gives me Okay, now I see it. Oh, they've changed it. Okay. I
Record
have
to
it now.
computer.
Okay.
Record to
All
computer.
right. Now I'm recording it.
All
Okay.
right,
Thank
it
you
is now
so
recorded. Yep.
much. All right, we're ready to go. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Positivity Project, brought to you by AchieveWellnessTogether.com and SacredU.love. I am your host, Angela Nelson, and today is the second day of August. And as we step into the month of August, we celebrate National Wellness Month. It's a perfect time to focus on taking care of yourself in all aspects, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And today we have a very special guest, a very good friend of mine, Carol Vinci. And Carol, let me tell you a little bit about her. She is a dynamic serial entrepreneur whose journey in business began at the age of 16. Over her career, she has navigated various industries from corporate roles to venture capital during the dot-com boom of the 1990s. Known for her visionary insights, Carol has been instrumental in pioneering client-server computing and exploring renewable energy initiatives. Despite facing challenges due to undiagnosed ADD and dyslexia, Carol's intuitive decision-making and lifelong commitment to wellness has been her superpowers. Recognizing her unique strengths later in life, she now focuses on empowering others to understand and harness their potential. Her passion lies in guiding individuals through their personal discovery journeys, emphasizing the importance of holistic well being. Carol, welcome to the Positivity Project.
Well, Angela, thank you so much. And I'm so glad that you began your comments with self-care, because one of the things that I do talk about is that those of us who've spent any time on an airplane know that if there is an emergency, we are directed to put the masks on ourselves first so that we can then be effective working with our children's, our traveling companions, or just the person who happens to be sitting in the seat next to us. That is the same perspective that I bring to my discussion about ADD and ADHD. Hiding it, masking it, being ignorant of the symptoms, or just having spent a lifetime of being beaten up for the defects and deficits that most people can articulate ad nauseam, right? I focus on the strengths and superpowers. And that's where I want to encourage people to take that first step. It took me
Carol, you mentioned,
yeah,
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
no, it took me a long time to be able to be this open about my condition.
And I'm wondering, can you tell me what the difference is and tell our audience what is the difference between ADD and ADHD?
The professionals now use ADHD with 6 or 7 or 8 different categories. I refer to both. ADD is the symptom that allows me, or the condition that allows me to stand still. If I have ADHD, I'd be here, and I'd be here, and I'd be here, and I'd be picking up something off the floor. The people with ADHD have the physical motion that they cannot stop. That's why little boys in school are diagnosed more than their female companions, because they're my turn, or they're standing on the desk. They tend to be more ADHD. When I started talking about this, one of my colleagues said to me, if you had only spoken about ADHD, I would have ignored your work because that's my brother. So I would lose the part of the population that relates to ADD but has no association with ADHD. They consider it two entirely different conditions, problems, whatever label you want to give on it. So it is a mouthful, but that's why I include both.
Glad that you include both because this is something that, a lot of people have no idea that maybe they have this. And, yourself, can you tell us about your journey and when you finally, started asking questions or finding answers?
Well, the person I was living with over 30 years ago suggested I see a therapist. And the therapist's comment to me was, "You've been far too successful to even think about ADD." Now, think about the loss for me of those 3 decades. But I also grew up in a household where admitting to any weaknesses was not welcome. So for your own personal safety, you had to hide, you had to mask, which takes a tremendous amount of energy.
Mm.
And that energy is more properly used in work that you could do or relationships with people. So I know, I mean, it took me from the time I had a label for it until I was even able to whisper the term. It took me 5 years, which seems like an eternity. But, I worked in a male-oriented environment from just about all my career, both as an entrepreneur and as a corporate employee. So adding another difficulty to that ladder that I was trying to climb was not something that I welcomed. But I also didn't get the support of my family. You were expected to get 100 on every exam, and when I brought home a math test with a 98, my dad's first question was, "What happened to the other 2 points?" So that was the environment that I was expected to function in. And it was thanks to a coach who for 2 years prodded, cajoled, sometimes kicked me in the ass to say, "This is your unique selling point." But it took that long. So I'm trying to reach out to business owners or corporate people to say, if you need somebody to talk with, if you would like some encouragement or support as you take that first small step, I've been there, I've done that, and I would be happy to provide that support and assistance to get you over the line because it has reduced a tremendous amount of stress in my life.
It sounds like, so you said it took you 5 years after you discovered your superpower to actually admit it to yourself or use that term in the open. And and also with the lack of support, that's understandable, especially in the home environment and the work environment in a male-dominated industry where you're already up against the glass ceiling and trying to, compete as an equal. Well, don't get me started while receiving less pay.
Yeah,
But
all those things, yes.
that's a whole nother
As I said, I
segment for
didn't want
another
to add
time.
another degree of difficulty to the process.
Exactly. Why do you think there's such a resistance to that?
Well, there is a tremendous lack of knowledge about the
Mhm.
subject. Doctors in medical school get 6 to 8 hours about teaching about ADD or ADHD, and it's primarily directed to pediatric patients.
Mhm.
There is no diagnostic guide for anybody over 12. And some people like
Wow.
myself don't have parents that I could go back to and say, how did I behave as a 6-year-old? Or what were my challenges at 10 or as I started going through puberty? I mean, those people have passed. So it's very difficult. The average age, at least in the United States, that women get diagnosed is 39. And it is primarily when they take their children to be diagnosed or treated. And they sit there listening to the doctor and they're going, that's me, that's me, that's me. That's how I self-diagnosed. I was at a presentation, I knew one of the speakers at UBS, the international financial firm. The head of one of the senior managers invited his top managers, and his opening comments to his staff, and this was 9 years ago. And I remember this word for word because it was so impactful. He said, you need to listen to these three very ADHD, all men, panelists, because you have people on your staff who exhibit these conditions. They will not conform to the normal corporate behavior.
Mm.
But if you don't accept their behavior and they leave us and go work for our competitors, we will never catch up. So he recognized the value that, our approach to problem solving. I can't lay it out. I can't give you, here are the 5 or 6 things that I do to solve problems. But he recognized that the characteristic that some of his staff had was what made them competitive. And they were going to take those skills if they were forced to 9 to 5 and, fitting in a little box. They were going to go work someplace else. And their competitive advantage would be lost. And that's the message that I want to get across to all business owners, that if you really want to blow the socks off of any forecast that you've ever made in your business, hire some of us, because it comes so naturally. I mean, I've worked on projects that people said it can't be done. It's been sitting on the bench in one of the labs for 2 years. We have no idea how to put the pieces together. And I'm going, don't worry about it. I've got half the dots connected, and next week I'll have a solution for you. I mean, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way, but it just comes so naturally. We listen all the time. We've got steel traps as brains. And I've been accused of making snap judgments. But that's not really true. In fact, I've been collecting all of these random pieces of information that I pick up from, disparate places. So they're all sitting there waiting for some thread to connect them. And all of a sudden, somebody will ask a question or just make a comment. And I'm able to pull them all together and say, here it is. And, it's interesting because there was a woman that I played golf with. That's how we originally met. And that's the only place she had seen me. And then she started doing face-to-face networking events. This was obviously before COVID. And she started off each of her meetings with a unique question or statement. And at this particular meeting, she said, just for everybody to get to know each other, think about 2 or 3 words that describe you. And she went around the room. And when she got to me, I said, unique solutions. And she said, that is so you. And it's so me that it showed up on the golf course. We hadn't never worked together, but I was the one who was going to hit the ball between the trees as opposed to chip it out into the short grass, right? It is so me. And those 2 words were on my resume when I left IBM 30 years ago. So that has been part of me, but that's the value that we bring to the table. And not the fact that I can't handle clutter or I'm also dyslexic. So thank goodness for spell check on computers now, because it's not nearly as embarrassing as it used to be. Yes, those are things that my life depended on it. I couldn't deal with. But there's other things,
Sounds like IBM really, really valued you because you were able to think outside of the box. And like you said, collectively have all of this information and piece it together. That is a very valuable trait. And I know that you and I have talked about it, and you said they promoted from within. And I love that you were such a forward thinker and you were able to, come up with new ideas for them that were very profitable for them.
Yes. Yes. And the formal statistics are a third of all business owners are ADD or ADHD. I think that number is double because we don't play well in other people's sandboxes. But I was fortunate when I started working for IBM, they were growing. It was at the beginning of, the different change in technology. So there wasn't a yellow brick road to follow. And there weren't these tight boxes that you were expected to fit into, or at least I was able to find people to work for who would give me that space. So it was fun. I mean, somebody this morning at a networking breakfast was saying, for so many years I hated my job. And I have to say, I have not hated my job. Occasionally I've had poor managers who I've hated, but not the general environment. And I purposely position myself in roles that, you know, focus on my strengths. And that's what I'm here to do for people who don't have that instinct or need a little, training wheels to develop that instinct or to get the experience of stepping out and saying, maybe I can do this. And particularly women, when a man sees a job that he's
Yes.
30% qualified for, he immediately submits, throws his hat in the ring, right?
Mm-hmm.
A woman
Yes.
who has only
Yes.
70% of the skills for a job wants to register for a class so she can close the gap of the 30% she's
Oh
missing.
my gosh.
And so, clearly all of the jobs that I had, I didn't have all the skills. I certainly didn't speak Japanese when I traveled to Tokyo regularly. I did take Japanese classes because it helped me understand their English, but was never close to fluent. I mean, never was going to be fluent. But, there were other things that I brought to the table that circumvented that shortcoming.
Very nice. And I, again, coming back to the, able to think outside of the box, forward thinking and innovative and instinctual. Can any size business benefit from having a person with ADD or ADHD on their staff?
Absolutely. And what I have found is a lot of business owners or ADD or ADHD generate hundreds of ideas, but are short on revenue because they don't have the skills to execute. So that's where I help them. I help them build a team that has people with the skills to execute so that revenue flows. Because an idea without a plan and a staff to support it is an idea. But you really need the complete package. So, my tagline is the ADHD performance co-pilot. I'm not there to run your business, but I'm there as a sounding board. I'm there to nudge you along to help those decisions that you're a little reluctant to make and to highlight or point out how important they are. The example that I use is 1-800-JUNK, which is a service here in the States that collects used furniture or, the 20-year attic collection that the local, town trash collector says, no, we're here to pick up trash and recycle, not the 20-year attic collection or the 15-year garage collection. And the guy who started that business is very ADHD, but he was smart enough to hire a team that does all the execution. He probably couldn't tell you what the details of his business are. And that's an important step so that you're not frustrated, that you're not attempting to learn everything. Life's too short. You can't be competent in the level of a skill to be competitive in every part of your business. When I was a manager at IBM, we were encouraged to work with the people who were struggling. And I made this comment before. If I took somebody with a 20% skill level in something and doubled it, it's still unacceptable. Whereas if I took somebody with a 70% skill level in something and doubled that, Now we're at 140% for those of you who are numbers challenged. And that's serious productivity. And so that's where we want to focus. Where are the top people in that position and how can I help them grow? And if you're sitting there going, I'm not going to do that if my life depended on it, then let's find somebody. If that's a critical function in your organization, let's find somebody who excels to be able to get that done so that as a team you work together.
I love that you pointed out that, most business owners have ADD because in listening to your description, I'm thinking, and I don't know, Elon Musk, I was thinking about Steve Jobs, all of these people, and
Yes.
they were always innovative thinkers, very creative, and all of these ideas. And you're right, none of those probably would have been put into practicality or formed into being if it
Right.
wasn't for a
Well, and
and
Richard Branson, who's known more for his dyslexia than he is for his ADHD, was asked, "How do you run all these diverse businesses?" And his
mhm,
comment was, "I recognize the growth potential in them, but I'm smart enough to know that I'm not the person to achieve those growth objectives. So I hire the team to run the business." But he's got the vision to say, oh my God, this business could be, if it's here now, it could be all the way up here in terms of revenue, in terms of recognition, in terms of brand awareness. But he's sitting there going, me? Oh, come on. No, not possible. I wouldn't even try. It would be a total waste of energy.
mm,
So if you're
that's
comfortable
wisdom.
in your own skin and you can make those statements, then you're ready to start growing. If you're sitting there going, mine, I have to master it all.
Mm,
The pace of business today doesn't allow that luxury.
so true. So very true. And I know that you are working on expanding the acceptance of ADD and ADHD in a very spectacular and unique way. Can you
Yes,
share with us how you're
sure.
doing this?
Well, there are books and medical journals and all that sort of stuff about the condition. And I thought, how can I simplify it? How can I put something in people's hands that can start the conversation? The elephant in the room that's been ignored for decades has some really serious reasons on why somebody has to start the conversation. So I've created a card deck. And people think, oh, tarot or poker. No, there actually is a whole industry of training materials that are available in, mine are 3.5 by 5.5 inch cards. And it's divided into two primary sections, which is awareness of the symptoms. And there are 15 cards in that segment. And the first one is really to sort of rattle your cage. Families with ADHD are twice as likely to divorce. 25% of women with ADHD attempt suicide by vehicle. And
Oh
I was a
my.
volunteer EMT, and I didn't know that. And that was not known in the industry, but we just knew that on a sunny day with no skid marks, women's cars would be up against trees. The next segment is acceptance of the superpowers and the things that we've spoken about. And then there will be three segments, one for employees.
Uh-oh. Oh no, I think we lost Carol temporarily, but she should be coming in soon. Hopefully we'll get her back here. So Carol and I met through a networking group, and she is just such a bright and shining light in this world and shining positivity on the awareness of ADD and ADHD. And her idea of this card deck is phenomenal. And by utilizing this card deck, she's not only bringing an awareness and acceptance as well of ADD and ADHD. And if I may, while she's hopefully trying to rejoin us, I'll let you know that she said the first card deck that she has is about acceptance, or excuse me, is awareness. And in awareness, she has the different cards that will give you possibly the different symptoms, uh, or signs. I think signs is a better word because I don't want to say symptoms. It's not like a disease. It's a superpower and it's unique, and if you can capitalize upon your innovative thinking, your creativity, and your energy, then this is why Carol demonstrates so brilliantly and wonderfully that ADD and ADHD are in fact superpowers and not any kind of limitations. And any business would be fortunate to have somebody and even a whole team of ADD and ADHD members. And I know her first card deck, hopefully she'll come back on soon. It looks like we're still live. We're just waiting for Carol to come back. And oh, it looks like she is back. Here we go. All right. Thank you for being patient. And hopefully we'll have Carol here in just a moment. Yeah, she's back. Carol, I was just telling people about the first card deck is awareness and how it demonstrates signs instead of symptoms, because I don't feel, like it's not a disease, it is a superpower. And I wanted you to go ahead and elaborate on the following decks that you're working with.
Yes, sorry about that. We've had some terrible thunderstorms in the area, so we had a power blip. Apologize for that. So yes,
That's okay.
and what I realized is that there is those two segments, there is then a different target audience. It's the employee who's trying to position themselves in the best career for themselves. There's the business owner. And then there's a segment that I never thought of, but feedback that I've gotten from people as they listen to me speak, and that is primarily women who live and work with their male partners or spouses, and they've learned more about the condition so they can be more understanding and supportive. So it reduces the risk of divorce. And then the other segment is because women, little girls don't get diagnosed. I'm looking at creating a product to train teachers on how to recognize the symptoms in their students so that we don't have people getting diagnosed at 39 and losing those four decades of their lives with not being accepted for the contributions that they can make. And then the last one is parenting version, to make parents aware of how they can be more understanding and supportive of their children. And I talk about the way I've managed mine instinctively again is diet and exercise. So that's the other part that, kids are sitting there going, but I want McDonald's, or, a large soda, to encourage parents of how important it is for the stability of the child's behavior to limit the type of artificial flavorings and colorings that go into a lot of foods that, while they may be convenient, are also very disruptive. So it is expanded from something that I thought was a one version, and just by listening, and that's what I encourage any business owner to, listen to your market and learn and see how, you can leverage what you originally think of. But, as I say, there's an expression, managed by walking around. You're not going to find a lot of these ideas by sitting in your executive chair behind your desk, that you really need to get out there and communicate with people.
Absolutely. And your card decks are going to help impact so many people's lives. And like you said, help them see and become aware and also accept, you know,
Exactly.
the uniqueness and the superpowers because
Yes.
everybody is different. And the fact that, this births creativity, and I know you mentioned energy, this is something that every business owner can work with. And like you said, many business owners do have this.
Yep.
And the fact that you're going to help save marriages and help save little girls from
Yes.
going for years without knowing why they're different and what this is and how to harness it and embrace their superpower and put on their cape.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah. So feel free to use that.
I will.
And
Thank you.
thank you so much for sharing about your card decks. And how can people find and purchase the card decks that you offer?
There is a system called deckable.com. It's actually designed after Audible, the book system that you can purchase and listen to
Yes.
books, audio version. Well, the founder of this organization mimicked his design process against Audible, and it's now called deckable.com. And if you go into deckable.com and you search ADHD, you will find a picture of the background. That's the cover, the opening card. And the
Nice.
version that addresses employees is the one that's out there right now. And the others are in development, so and being tested and piloted so that we have the most effective and important information for the markets.
Well, your journey is just beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. And I am so impressed and admire what you are doing with empowering others with their unique super gifts and super talents. And thank you so much for all that you do and for sharing your insights and experiences with us today, Carol.
Well, I hope that this meets the objectives of the Positivity Project because that's all what I'm about. I am all about positive reinforcement.
100%. And yes, we're happy to have you back anytime. And thank
Well, I'd
you,
be glad to
everybody.
do that.
Oh,
Yes,
awesome. Awesome. Especially when you come out with your other card decks. I'm very
absolutely.
excited.
When the new
And I'd love
releases
to,
are, yes,
yes. And I'd love to see that too when you have them in your hands. That would be great. And I actually want to order some too. So I think that would be wonderful. And thank you to everybody for joining us. And remember, National Wellness Month is the perfect time to embrace holistic well-being and personal growth. Stay positive, stay well, and see you the next time